I still remember the sound my body made when it hit the hardwood floor at the bottom of those stairs. It wasn't just the thud you'd expect. It was this sickening combination of impact and something cracking, followed by the most deafening silence I'd ever heard. But what haunts me even more than that sound is what came after. The lie that would reshape my entire childhood and nearly destroy my relationship with reality itself. My name is Sarah, and I need to tell you this story because I've carried it alone for far too long. For 23 years, I've been told I was dramatic, oversensitive, that I remembered things wrong. But I know what happened that October afternoon when I was 12 years old. I know because the scar on my left temple still throbs when it rains. And I know because I can still feel my sister Emma's hands on my back, pushing with enough force to send me tumbling down 14 wooden steps. But let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand the dynamic in our house to really grasp why what happened next was so devastating. Emma was 14, 2 years older than me, and she'd always been what my parents called spirited. That's such a gentle word for what she actually was: manipulative, calculating, and mean in ways that adults never seem to catch. She had this gift for making her cruelty look like accidents or misunderstandings. A pinch under the dinner table became, I was just trying to get her attention. Breaking my favorite necklace became, I was trying to fix the clasp for her. She was beautiful too, with these big green eyes and strawberry blonde hair that my mom would braid every morning, calling her my little angel. I, on the other hand, was what you might call the family disappointment. Not intentionally, but I was awkward, bookish, and I had this habit of speaking up when things didn't seem right. I asked too many questions, remembered too many details, and worst of all, I couldn't seem to let things go the way Emma could. Where she was charming and sweet to adults, I was serious and intense. Where she could laugh off conflicts, I needed to understand them, to resolve them, to make sense of them. Our house was this old Victorian that my parents had bought as a fixer-upper when Emma was born. The staircase was one of those dramatic, steep ones that curved slightly near the top, with a wooden banister that my dad had refinished himself. 14 steps from the second floor to the main hallway, each one creaking in its own specific way. I knew those stairs like a song. Step 3 had a high squeak, Step 7 sagged slightly to the left, Step 11 was solid and silent. The day it happened was a Tuesday in October. I remember because it was the day before Emma's school picture day, and my mom had spent the evening before setting Emma's hair in rollers, fussing over what she'd wear. I'd been in my room doing homework, algebra, which I actually enjoyed because it made sense, unlike everything else in my life. Emma had been in her room supposedly doing the same, but I could hear her on the phone with her friend Ashley, giggling about some boy named Derek who'd asked her to the Halloween dance. I needed to use the bathroom, which meant passing Emma's room. Her door was cracked open, and I could see her sitting on her bed, twirling her hair around her finger the way she did when she was planning something. I tried to walk quietly, but Step 11 betrayed me with its creak. "Sarah?" Emma's voice was honey-sweet, which should have been my first warning sign. "Can you come here for a second?" I hesitated. Experience had taught me that Emma's requests were rarely innocent, but I also knew that ignoring her would only make things worse later. I pushed open her door and stepped inside. Her room was everything mine wasn't. Perfectly organized, painted in this soft lavender color that my mom had let her choose, with a canopy bed and a vanity mirror surrounded by lights like a movie star's dressing room. She was sitting cross-legged on her bed, still in her school clothes, looking at me with that calculating expression I'd learned to fear. "I need you to do something for me," she said, setting down her phone. "I need you to tell Mom and Dad that I was in my room studying all evening if they ask." "Why would they ask?" I said, even though I already knew I didn't want to know the answer. "Because I might not have been in my room studying all evening," she said, smiling that smile that never reached her eyes. "Derek's picking me up at 8, and we're going to drive around for a while. Mom and Dad will be watching TV. They won't even notice I'm gone. Emma, you know you're not supposed to go out on school nights, and you definitely aren't supposed to get in cars with boys." I could hear how prissy I sounded, but I couldn't help it. The rules existed for a reason, and Emma broke them so casually it made me anxious. "God, Sarah, you're such a baby. It's not like we're going to do anything bad. We're just going to talk and maybe get some ice cream. But Mom and Dad wouldn't understand because they're old and boring. She stood up and walked over to her closet, pulling out a different top. "So I need you to cover for me. It's what sisters do." "No," I said, surprising myself with how firm I sounded. "I'm not going to lie for you. If you want to sneak out, that's your choice. But I'm not going to be part of it." The change in Emma's expression was immediate and terrifying. The fake sweetness disappeared, replaced by something cold and hard. "You're going to cover for me, Sarah. Because if you don't, I'll tell Mom and Dad that you were the one who broke her china teacup last week." "I didn't break Mom's teacup," I said, my voice getting higher. "You did. I saw you. But who do you think they'll believe?" Emma stepped closer to me, and I instinctively stepped back. Perfect little Emma, who never does anything wrong, or weird Sarah, who's always causing problems? She was right, and we both knew it. This was the pattern in our house. Emma did something wrong, I either got blamed or was forced to help cover it up. It had been happening for years, and I was sick of it. "No," I said again, louder this time. "I'm not doing it anymore. I'm tired of lying for you." Emma's face twisted with rage. "You're such a selfish little brat. You know what? Fine, I'll just tell them right now that you're the one who's been stealing money from Mom's purse to buy candy at school." "What? I never—" $20 went missing last week, remember? Mom was looking all over for it. I'll just mention that I saw you in her room, near her purse, and she'll put 2 and 2 together." I felt something snap inside me. Years of being manipulated, blamed, and controlled by my sister suddenly boiled over. "You're lying. You're the one who took that money. You're always lying." "Prove it," Emma said, smirking now. "Go ahead, prove any of it. Who do you think they'll believe? Their angel or their problem child?" I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the years of frustration. Maybe it was the injustice of it all. Or maybe I was just finally tired of being afraid. I reached for Emma's phone, which was still on the bed. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, lunging for it. "I'm calling Derek myself," I said, holding it away from her. "I'm going to tell him exactly what kind of person you really are." Emma went ballistic. She grabbed my wrist, trying to get the phone back, and we struggled for a moment. I was taller than her, but she was stronger, and she was fighting dirty, digging her nails into my arm, pulling my hair. We stumbled toward her bedroom door, both of us yelling, "Give me my phone! Not until you stop being such a— Girls, what's going on up there?" Mom's voice drifted up from the kitchen. "Nothing, Mom," Emma called back sweetly, even as she yanked my hair hard enough to bring tears to my eyes. "Just playing." That's when I made my mistake. I yanked free from her grip and turned to run. I was going to go straight to Mom and Dad and tell them everything. About the money, about the sneaking out, about all the lies Emma had been telling. I was done protecting her. I made it to the hallway, Emma right behind me. I could hear her bare feet on the hardwood floor, moving fast. I was almost to the stairs when I felt her hands on my back. Not grabbing, not trying to stop me, but pushing. Hard. The physics of it are simple when you think about it. I was already moving forward, already off balance from running. Emma's push didn't need to be that strong to send me over the edge, but it was strong. I felt her palms against my shoulder blades, felt the deliberate force behind it, and then I was airborne. The fall seemed to last forever and no time at all. I remember thinking absurdly about a physics lesson we'd learned about gravity and acceleration. I remember seeing the steps rushing up toward me, remember trying to grab the banister and missing. I remember the sickening realization that I was going to hit the floor hard and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I landed on my left side, my head cracking against the hardwood with a sound like a baseball bat hitting a tree. The world exploded into stars and then went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the couch in our living room, my head throbbing like someone was hitting it with a hammer. Mom was sitting beside me, holding an ice pack to my temple, and Dad was pacing back and forth, talking on the phone to someone about whether they should take me to the hospital. "She's awake," Mom said, relief flooding her voice. "Sarah, honey, can you tell me your name?" "Sarah," I mumbled, trying to sit up. The room spun violently, and I had to lie back down. "What happened?" "You fell down the stairs, sweetheart," Mom said, smoothing my hair back from my face. "Emma said you tripped and tumbled all the way down. You hit your head pretty hard." I blinked, trying to process this. Through the fog of my concussion, I could see Emma sitting in the armchair across the room, looking perfectly composed except for her red-rimmed eyes. She'd been crying, but not the kind of crying that comes from panic or fear. This was the strategic crying Emma did when she wanted adults to comfort her. I didn't trip, I said slowly. Emma pushed me. The room went silent. Dad stopped pacing and looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not angry exactly, but something colder. Mom's hand stilled on my forehead. "Sarah," Mom said carefully, "you hit your head very hard. Sometimes when that happens, people get confused about what happened." "I'm not confused," I said, my voice getting stronger even though my head was pounding. "We were fighting in Emma's room, and I was trying to get away from her, and she pushed me down the stairs." "That's not what happened," Emma said, her voice small and shaky. "Sarah, you were running really fast, and you tripped on the top step. I tried to catch you, but I couldn't. I would never push you down the stairs." She was good. Even concussed and in pain, I had to admit she was really good. The way she said it, with just the right amount of hurt in her voice, like she couldn't believe I would accuse her of something so terrible. "Emma's right, honey," Dad said, sitting down on the coffee table in front of me. "She came running downstairs screaming for help. She was hysterical. People don't usually act like that when they've hurt someone on purpose. But she did push me," I insisted. "We were fighting about her sneaking out with Derek, and she was trying to get her phone back and—" "Derek?" Mom interrupted. "Honey, Emma doesn't know any Derek. She's been in her room doing homework all evening." I looked at Emma, who was shaking her head sadly. "I think you might have dreamed about a boy named Derek," she said gently. "Sometimes when people hit their heads, they remember things that didn't really happen." The gaslighting was so smooth, so complete, that for a moment I doubted myself. Had I dreamed it? Was I remembering wrong? But no, I could still feel the pressure of her hands on my back, could still see the calculation in her eyes when she realized what she could get away with. "I didn't dream it," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "I know what happened." "Sarah, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice full of patience that somehow felt condescending. "I need you to really think about this. Emma loves you. She would never hurt you on purpose. Sometimes siblings play rough, and sometimes accidents happen. But Emma pushing you down the stairs? That's a very serious accusation." "It's not an accusation," I said, tears starting to fall. "It's what happened." "I think we should take her to the hospital," Dad said, looking worried. "If she's having false memories, that could be a sign of a serious head injury." "No," I said quickly. The last thing I wanted was to be poked and prodded by doctors who would probably side with my parents anyway. "I'm fine. I know what I remember." Mom and Dad exchanged a look that I would see many times over the next few years. The look that said, "Our daughter is being dramatic again." Emma caught it too, and I saw the tiny smile she tried to hide. "Why don't you get some rest?" Mom said, helping me sit up slowly. "We'll see how you feel in the morning." Sometimes these things become clearer after a good night's sleep, but they didn't become clearer. If anything, they became more complicated. Over the next few days, as the physical pain faded and the bruises started to heal, the emotional damage got worse. Every time I brought up what really happened, I was met with the same response: gentle concern for my mental state, suggestions that I was confused, reminders that head injuries can cause false memories. Emma, meanwhile, was the perfect concerned sister. She brought me soup when I was too dizzy to come down for dinner. She offered to help me with my homework. She even gave me one of her favorite stuffed animals to keep me company while I recovered. To anyone watching, she was a loving, caring sister who was worried about her injured sibling. But I knew the truth. I could see it in the way she looked at me when our parents weren't watching. Satisfied, almost proud. She'd gotten away with it, and we both knew it. More than that, she'd managed to make me look like the unstable one, the one who made up stories and false accusations. The worst part was how isolated it made me feel. I started to question everything, not just about the fall, but about all the other times Emma had hurt me or manipulated me. Had I imagined those too? Was I really as dramatic and oversensitive as everyone seemed to think? I tried talking to my best friend Jessica about it when I went back to school a few days later. She listened patiently as I explained what had happened, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. "I mean, Sarah," she said carefully, "you did hit your head pretty hard. And Emma's always been so nice to me whenever I come over. Are you sure you're remembering it right? Even my closest friend didn't believe me. That's when I realized how perfectly Emma had played this. She'd created a situation where questioning her story meant questioning my sanity, my reliability, my perception of reality itself. But I held on to the truth. Even as weeks turned into months and everyone seemed to forget about the incident, I remembered. I remembered the feeling of her hands on my back, the deliberate force behind the push, the calculated way she'd manipulated the aftermath. I carried it with me like a secret, like a burden I couldn't put down. The psychological impact was devastating in ways I didn't fully understand at the time. I started having nightmares about falling, about being pushed, about no one believing me when I tried to explain what was happening. I became hypervigilant around Emma, always watching for signs that she might hurt me again. But she never did, not physically anyway. Instead, she found subtler ways to maintain control. She'd accidentally spill things on my homework. She'd forget to give me messages from friends who called. She'd tell my parents about embarrassing things I'd done, but frame them as concern for my well-being. And through it all, she maintained this perfect facade of being the ideal daughter, the loving sister who was just worried about her troubled sibling. The worst part was how it affected my relationship with my parents. They started treating me differently after the fall, more carefully, like I was fragile or unreliable. When I'd get upset about something Emma had done, they'd exchange those looks and suggest I take some time to calm down. When I'd try to explain Emma's behavior, they'd gently redirect the conversation, as if protecting me from my own delusions. I became the family's designated problem child. If something went wrong, if there was conflict, if emotions ran high, it was because Sarah was being dramatic again. Emma learned to use this to her advantage, escalating situations just enough to make me lose my temper, then playing the victim when I inevitably exploded. High school was particularly brutal. Emma was popular, beautiful, and seemingly perfect. She was student council president, captain of the debate team, and had colleges recruiting her by junior year. I, meanwhile, was awkward, intense, and had a reputation for being difficult. Teachers who loved Emma would look at me with confusion, as if they couldn't understand how two sisters could be so different. The few times I tried to tell other adults about Emma's behavior, I was met with the same response I'd gotten from my parents: gentle skepticism, suggestions that I was misunderstanding her intentions, reminders that siblings often have complicated relationships. No one wanted to believe that perfect Emma could be capable of the calculated cruelty I described. I started to wonder if I was going crazy. The gaslighting was so consistent, so complete, that I began to doubt my own perceptions. Maybe I was dramatic. Maybe I was oversensitive. Maybe I did misremember things, twist them to make Emma look bad when she was really just trying to help. But then there were moments, brief, unguarded moments, when Emma would let her mask slip, a smirk when she thought no one was looking, a cruel comment whispered just loud enough for me to hear, a deliberate accident that hurt just enough to remind me who was really in control. Those moments kept me tethered to reality, reminded me that I wasn't imagining things. Emma was exactly who I thought she was. She was just very, very good at hiding it from everyone else. The breaking point came during my senior year of high school. I'd been accepted to a small college about 3 hours away, and I was counting down the days until I could escape. Emma was already at her dream school, studying pre-med and maintaining her perfect GPA while somehow finding time to be homecoming queen and volunteer at the local hospital. I was home alone one weekend when Emma came back for a visit. Mom and Dad had gone out to dinner, and Emma was supposed to be studying in her room. I was in the kitchen making myself some dinner when she appeared in the doorway. "So," she said, leaning against the frame with that familiar, calculating look, "I heard you got into state." "Yeah," I said, not looking up from my sandwich. I'd learned not to engage with Emma when we were alone. It never ended well. "That's great," she said, but her tone suggested it was anything but. "I'm sure you'll do fine there. It's not exactly Harvard, but it's probably the best you could do." I bit my tongue. This was classic Emma, the backhanded compliment designed to make me feel small while giving her plausible deniability if anyone overheard. "You know," she continued, moving into the kitchen, "I've been thinking about what happened when we were kids, when you fell down the stairs." My entire body went rigid. We hadn't talked about it in years, not since those first awful days when I'd tried desperately to make everyone believe me. "I don't want to talk about it," I said, but my voice came out weak. "I think you should," Emma said, moving closer, "because I've been carrying this guilt for so long, and I think it's time I came clean." I looked up at her, confused. Was she actually going to admit what she'd done? After all these years? "The thing is," she said, her voice soft and sad, "I've always felt terrible about what happened, because I know I could have prevented it." "What do you mean?" I asked, despite myself. "I mean, I saw you running toward the stairs. I saw that you were upset and not paying attention. I could have called out to you, warned you to slow down. But I was upset too because of our fight, and I didn't. I let you run straight into danger because I was angry." I stared at her, speechless. This was somehow worse than the original lie. She was rewriting history again, making herself the victim of her own guilt while still denying what she'd actually done. "That's not what happened," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. "I know it's hard to accept," Emma said, reaching out like she was going to touch my arm. "But I think deep down, you know I would never hurt you on purpose. I love you, Sarah. You're my sister." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She was gaslighting me again, but this time she was doing it under the guise of confession and reconciliation. She was making me complicit in my own manipulation. "You pushed me," I said, my voice getting stronger. "You pushed me down those stairs, and you know it." Emma's expression shifted, just for a moment. The mask slipped, and I saw the real Emma underneath, cold, calculating, and completely without remorse. "Prove it," she said, and then the mask was back in place. "But Sarah, I'm worried about you. You've been holding on to this fantasy for so long, and it's not healthy. Maybe you should talk to someone about it." That's when I realized that Emma would never admit what she'd done. She'd never feel guilty about it, never apologize, never even acknowledge the pain she'd caused. She'd gotten away with it completely, and she knew it. But something else occurred to me in that moment. Emma needed me to keep doubting myself. She needed me to stay confused, to keep questioning my own memories, because my certainty was the only threat to her perfect narrative. If I stopped caring about making her admit the truth, if I stopped trying to convince other people, if I just accepted what I knew and moved on, she'd lose her power over me. "You're right," I said, and I watched Emma's eyes widen slightly in surprise. "I should talk to someone about it. In fact, I think I will." For the first time in years, Emma looked uncertain. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm going to talk to someone about what it's like to live with a sister who pushed me down the stairs and then convinced everyone I was crazy for remembering it. I'm going to talk about what it's like to be gaslit by your own family for years. I'm going to talk about what it's like to carry this truth alone." Emma's face went pale. "Sarah, you can't—" "I can't what? Tell the truth? Talk about my own experiences? Get the help I need to deal with the psychological damage you've caused?" "No one will believe you," Emma said, but for the first time, she sounded desperate rather than confident. "Maybe not," I said, "but I'll believe me. And that's enough." That conversation was the beginning of my real healing. Not because Emma ever admitted what she'd done, but because I finally stopped needing her to. I went to college, and for the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who didn't have preconceived notions about who I was. I made friends who believed me when I told them about my experiences. I found a therapist who helped me understand that being gaslit by family members is a real form of abuse, and that my reactions to it were normal and valid. It took years of work to undo the damage Emma had done to my sense of reality. I had to learn to trust my own perceptions again, to believe my own memories, to stop second-guessing every thought and feeling. I had to learn that being called dramatic or oversensitive didn't make me wrong. It often meant I was seeing something other people preferred to ignore. Emma, meanwhile, continued to be perfect. She graduated summa cum laude, got into medical school, and became a doctor. She married a nice man from a good family, bought a beautiful house, and had 2 adorable children. On social media, she looks like she has the perfect life, and maybe she does. But I know who she really is. I know what she's capable of. And I know that the little girl who pushed her sister down the stairs and convinced everyone it was an accident is still in there, hiding behind the facade of the perfect daughter, the perfect doctor, the perfect mother. The hardest part isn't the physical scar on my temple that still throbs when it rains. It's not even the years of therapy it took to heal from the psychological damage. The hardest part is knowing that Emma got away with it completely. She never faced consequences for what she did. She never had to confront the truth about herself. She never had to change or grow or become a better person. But I did. I had to become stronger, more resilient, more independent. I had to learn to trust myself when no one else would. I had to find my own voice and my own truth, even when it meant standing alone. And you know what? I'm proud of the person I became. I'm proud that I survived Emma's manipulation and came out stronger. I'm proud that I learned to see through lies and manipulation, even when they come from people who are supposed to love me. I'm proud that I never became like her, that I never learned to hurt people and then convince them they were imagining it. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you've been gaslit by someone you love, if you've been told you're dramatic or oversensitive or imagining things when you know you're not, I want you to know that you're not alone. Trust yourself. Trust your memories. Trust your perceptions. The people who love you shouldn't make you question your own reality. And if you're listening to this and you recognize Emma in yourself, if you've ever hurt someone and then convinced them they were imagining it, if you've ever used someone's love for you against them, if you've ever chosen maintaining your image over acknowledging the truth, it's not too late to change. It's not too late to be honest, to make amends, to become a better person. I still think about that day sometimes. I still wonder what would have happened if Emma had caught me when I fell instead of pushing me. I wonder what our relationship might have been like if she'd been capable of honesty and empathy. I wonder if things could have been different, but I don't wonder anymore if I'm remembering it wrong. I know what happened on those stairs. I know who pushed me, and I know that the truth is worth holding on to, even when everyone else wants you to let it go. That's my story. That's what happened when my sister pushed me down the stairs, and my mom called it sibling roughhousing. It's a story about gaslighting, about family dysfunction, about the power of maintaining your grip on reality when everyone around you is trying to make you question it. But it's also a story about survival, about healing, about learning to trust yourself even when no one else will. It's a story about finding your voice and your truth, even when it means standing alone. And if my story has resonated with you, if you found yourself nodding along or seeing your own experiences reflected in mine, please leave a comment below. Share your story if you feel comfortable doing so. Let's break the silence around family gaslighting and emotional abuse. Let's support each other in trusting our own perceptions and honoring our own truths. Because the truth matters. Your truth matters. And you deserve to be believed, especially by the people who claim to love you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing me when so many others didn't. And remember, you are not alone.